you are not a slow learner, but you are falling in some traps and loops in which I fail myself. The first one is to want to cram as many knowledge as you can in the minimum amount of time without letting this knowledge solidify. When ECMAScript 6 was released, it was now 4 or 5 years ago, I learned every keyword, every new keyword. This is a good thing to do, to know every keyword of your language. But at some time, just being aware of what exists is not the same as mastering the new things you need to learn. For example, maps, sets, all these new concepts. Okay, I knew what it was meant for. Weak sets, weak maps, I can't remember, there were 3 or 4 like this. But it entered one ear, as we say in French, and then it went out the other one without sticking in my brain, simply because I had no use case for all these different constructs. And then years after, I learned, for example, how you can use a map to create a cache system in which you will associate a key that might be, for example, a URL, and as a value you could have a promise, for example. And this now sticks, so I know that I could use a map in this specific case. So remember that learning something is okay, but you really know it and you will really remember it when you have a specific use case, and especially a use case for which this kind of construct was made for. So try to find the right books or videos that will associate a new thing you want to learn and why this thing was created. There are no ultimate courses. This is just a plain lie, meaning it's marketing, but marketing is 50% of time, I would say, a lie. So forget about this book or this video training that will make you a master in anything in 90 days. It just doesn't exist. And the same for a foreign language. For example, I've been learning English for years. I took 100+ lessons last year, and still have many things to learn. So it's the same in any field, like programming, like playing, I don't know, tennis, or learning to play chess. If you try to learn something complex like programming, it cannot take just a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It's more, and you'll probably have to use several sources of knowledge. If you're not programming something concrete right now, this week, that means you're not progressing, you're just learning, you're just keeping busy. And there is a huge difference between being busy and progressing. Just being busy is a way of procrastinating. It's a vicious one, because you see, usually when you think of procrastination, you think of a guy just binge watching a TV show or playing a video game on his phone. You see these kind of things, but actually you can procrastinate while reading stuff or watching videos about programming. But if you don't practice, if you don't find a specific use case, which we mentioned in the first tip, that means you're not really progressing or not as fast as you can. The fourth important part is to know why you're learning something. For example, on this channel, I really highlighted the fact of learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Does this mean that you don't need to learn a library or a framework? Absolutely not. But the problem is that lots of aspiring developers, they immediately jump on the new shiny framework or library or whatever. What is a framework or a library when you're a web developer? It's just something that ends up generating HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So knowing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript allows you then later on, when you use a library and framework, you know then what's happening, why the result is not exactly what you expect, and it will allow you to use vanilla JavaScript when you feel that it's more efficient, more appropriate. The tagline HTML, CSS, JavaScript for the win. This is definitely for the win, but then you would have to add a framework or a library. Progress is often 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. At least this is psychologically the impression you will have. And so don't give up when you're plateauing or you feel that you're regressing. It simply means that you need also sometimes to just rest, and you will see that pushing yourself beyond your limits is good when it's just a little beyond your limits. But if you're trying to go to be in the red zone or to be really at your maximum possibility every time, it's a recipe for burnout. That's why when you create your own project, your real project, sometimes you will do complex things with JavaScript and then you will switch to basic CSS just to make the result look nicer, and during this period you will allow your brain to relax, so it's important. So now the most important thing is to find programming ideas, and this is what there are in these videos. 5 project ideas that you can do in less than 50 lines of code.